Welcome to the inaugural launch of the African Film Festival Atlanta. The African Film Festival Atlanta is a signature event of the African Film and Arts Foundation, a non-profit media arts organization whose mission is to magnify and celebrate the visions, voices, lives, and stories of people from Africa and the African diaspora. Our live discussion today is with the director of Ever After, Tope Oshin, and the co-writer, Omotunde Akiode, moderated by Dr. Jude Akudunobi, alias High Chief. I told him I was going to do that. Who teaches in the Black Studies Department at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The film Ever After stars Kehinde Bankole, Kehinde Bankole, Ayolola, Tina Imba, Demola Adedoyin, Tosin Sido, Doris Simon, Abiodun Eleja, Rokpo Ewenla, and Uche Odo. Why are you laughing, Tope, now?
Come back home.
I'm coming. That's Tope anyway. It's okay. It's okay. Anyway, so now we're going to introduce our guests briefly with them, just reading out their bios. So Tope Oshin, who is the director of the film, was named one of OK 100 Women of 2017 by OK Africa. Tope Oshin is a multiple award-winning filmmaker who has directed over 7,000 hours of TV and film content. These consist of up to 750 episodes of some of Africa's biggest drama series, like MTV Sugar, Tinsel, Nigeria's first legal drama, Castle and Castle, and more. Her directing credits include films like New Money, Journey to Self, In Line, Ireti, The Young Smoker, We Don't Live Here Anymore, and the groundbreaking December 2018 film Up North, which is currently streaming on Netflix. Her producing credits include some of the highest Nigerian box office breaking movies, including The Wedding Party 2, 50, and her documentary about the film directors in Nigeria called Amaka's Kings. The Women of Nollywood, CEO and creative lead of Sunbow Productions, an international Emmy juror since 2014, Tope trained in filmmaking at the Colorado Film School in Denver and studied cinematography at Met Film School in London. She describes herself as a film artist dedicated to changing the world one frame at a time. So welcome, Tope. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We also have with us the co-writer, Omotunde Akiode, who is a Nigerian scriptwriter with over 10 years of experience in writing on popular Nigerian and African TV shows, including Tinsel, MTV Sugar, Niger, and Las Giddy Cops. I guess that's where you guys met. There's a connection there, right?
We've met all over the place.
All over the place, okay. Omotunde was recently selected to work on a Netflix animation show. This is a dream come true for her, as she grew up watching popular TV shows like Sesame Street and The Muppet Show. She started drawing cartoons for fun, and the passion grew, but without the knowledge and exposure of how to pursue a career in animation, she acquired a degree in architecture. That is so Nigerian. After getting her master's in architecture and still finding no fulfillment at her job, oh wow, this is the first time I'm reading this actually. She decided to start writing as it was something she's always done. Omotunde Akiode got her first script writing gig in 2018, but officially started her script writing career in 2010. She enjoys writing for children's shows and is passionate about promoting morals and nurturing children's minds in their formative years through writing quality content for children's shows. She finds fulfillment in entertaining Nigerians with great and impactful stories. So welcome, Omotunde, and thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Last but not the least is our High Chief Professor Dr. Jude Akudunobi, who is also an advisory board member of our foundation, the African Film and Arts Foundation here in Atlanta. He teaches in the Black Studies Department at the University of California, Santa Barbara, earned his PhD in cinema and television from the University of Southern California, and he works in African cinema, His work on African cinema have appeared in Iris, The Black Scholar, Inca, Journal of Contemporary African Art, Social Identities, Third Text, Research in African Studies, Research in African Literature, African Study Reviews, Meridian, Cinema Journals, among other publications and anthologies. Dr. Akudunobi's research interests span the complexities of cultural politics, post-colonial literatures, African diasporas, arts, popular cultures, media, and cinema. So those are all our guests. Thank you all for being here. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Akudunobi, who is going to moderate the conversation between Omotunde and Tope. I'll come off camera, and then towards the end, I will come back in to wrap up. So thank you for being here again, and
thanks for the opportunity.
See you in a minute.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the audience.
Okay, where do we start? We have quite a, places to go. Welcome to this very auspicious occasion. And I'm going to sometimes oscillate between Omotunde, the writer, and Tope. And please feel free at any point to chime in, because as film goes, it's a very collaborative art, so yeah. I'm sure we all know that. So there. Yeah. But let's start with this. We've heard about Omotunde's journey to fame, but with the director, how did you come about getting into the industry, and critically this project? How did this come about?
Okay, so my journey into the industry is, I've said, narrated so many times. So I got into study theater arts, TV, and film in university, and of course got to start taking acting classes immediately, participated in the convocation play. But then, my love for the whole story was evident. So further down in my acting career, I was opportune to meet with Amaka Igwe, who is she's late now, God rest her soul, a very reputable director, female director in Nigeria, one of the pioneers we had. So she, basically encouraged me, there's more here. You're interested in the whole story beyond what pertains to the actor. You should look more into the art of directing and all of that. So that got me on the journey to start thinking about telling stories in its entirety. And somewhere along the line, I took her advice, started doing more study, and got some formal education, an internship, and here I am today. So concerning Ever After, it's one of the several what if moments that I have as a storyteller. Essentially, stories come to me when I'm driving or cooking or whatever. So it was also a what if, moment that I had, what if, we could actually go back in time and fix errors that, we had made and, somehow find ways around it. It started as that what if. Let my imagination go wild. How far and wide can it go? And then, I got into that thought of, going back to an alternate universe or, something that seemed like a parallel lifetime. And then, thought about how we could complicate that even further. Thought about doing the idea of a parallel universe or whatever in Africa, in Nigeria, because, essentially it's not the kind of stories that we've told. And for me, that's always an attraction. I want to tell stories in ways that have not been told before. I like, the idea of doing big things, of doing things that scare me, So the whole idea came of, okay, let's, see how we can do this. I penned down my thoughts, sort of built it down, with myself. But was, shy to share it for a little bit. I just kept it there in my notepad and one day I'll get to this. One day I'll be bold enough to do this. One day I'll consider, the thought of this. And then, sometime down the line, I thought, you know what? Why not? And I said, okay, I'm really busy now. I don't think I want to jump into this now, but I want to get this made. And I thought, okay, who is the best collaborator that I work with? And I thought of Omotunde. So Omotunde, for me, from when I met her and had been familiar with her work, even working on television, has always been someone that is highly imaginative. And you can tell, from her working on children's programs and animation and all that, you need to be someone who is deep in imagination to be able to create content for children. And that's what got me thinking of Omotunde. Among the plethora of writers that I'd worked with, I felt, it had to be Motunde. And I reached out to her. I said, hey, what's up? Are you busy? You know, I want to share something with you. Let me see if you like it, or let me see if it, you know, piques your interest. Because for me, if it wasn't something she connected with, then she wouldn't be the right person to write it, or she wouldn't, you know, be able to bring it alive in essence. And I sent it to her. She was like, what, can we write this like right now? Can we get it to it? You know, she was so excited, you know, and offered also a couple of additional things here and there, that were elements that we could put in there. So she and I did a couple of workshops back and forth, me trying to get her to understand the, you know, the background of the story, why of it, what I'm looking to do with it, how I'm looking to affect lives, or, you know, basically the essence and the core of it. And then she took it and ran with it, you know, and came back with a screenplay, which, you know, we then worked back and forth with. And I think eventually I shot like the 4th or 5th draft, which is a usual habit of mine, because I feel like the story is never perfect, you know, until it's absolutely perfect, like all ends are tied. So that is how Ever After came to be, and how Omotunde joined me graciously on this beautiful journey and creating Ever After.
Well, thank you very much. And this, in lots of ways, is also a manifestation of sororal and creative collaboration, you know,
Yeah.
people who are really gifted. So, Omotunde, let me just ask you this question, okay? In terms of the narrative itself, I find some really close affinities with our heritage in terms of storytelling, in terms of the characters, and in terms of the incidents. Why were those so important to you? Because oftentimes for African filmmakers, they are told, oh, you have to make a film that is universal, which means basically bleaching out your Africanness, you know. But here they are very much anchored in the specificities of our present realities and cultures, particularly traditions and heritage. Why was that
Well,
important to you?
it was important because the most important thing was telling an authentic African story. And there was no way we could be authentic by trying to water down or please people that were not of our culture. And well, it's the argument that you want to tell a story that is, I don't know what word you use, universal.
They say universal, but we don't agree to that anyway.
The thing is a good story is a good story is a good story. If
Yeah.
we hear
Absolutely.
of stories from China, from India, and we connect to it. I mean, why do we connect to foreign stories as Africans? Because somewhere the authenticity of the human experience is something that is universal. So a woman that is unhappy in her marriage and wanting to change the past, that happens in every culture. That is universal. The fact that she just happens to be Yoruba it was like the backdrop, the dressing, the real core sentiment was something anybody could relate to. It could easily have been a Hausa story, or it could have been a story from the East, or Efik, or even from Cameroon or Zambia, or wherever. You know, so that didn't take away from the story. If anything, it added color, it added richness to it, because then we could tell it in a unique way. And I think that was actually what brought the beauty of the story, as opposed to just trying to make the thing international.
Bland, trying to make it bland.
Because when you're trying too hard to please people, that you lose your true self, and then you get bland.
Very true. And of course, you know, with African cinema too, this is a long-standing challenge, you know, trying to blend that, you know, the issue of critical acclaim, your own priorities, really prerogatives versus the commercial, you know, aspect. So it is good that you are steadfast in your commitment, because when we write our cultural worlds. You know, it might be fiction, but it's not just, well, I made it up. There are certain things that spark and in some ways shine the light. So I couldn't be happier, you know, from, you know, the way, you know, everything turned out. So this is going to be pretty much for two of you. Now, this film crisscrosses genres. It's not just a romantic narrative, you know, if you ask me. If anything else, it throws red flags around, you know, such, you know. It's psychological, you know, drama. It has mythical elements. It has romance, of course, you know, but critically too, it is about examining, the complexities around this oftentimes thrown around word love, and it's not incidental that the mom, Malake at some point asked, what is love, So how did you come about all these layers? And with respect to, and I have to say this, Alake is a very strong character, which is really one thing that would draw people to her. She's resilient and she's layered, in her character, So, but let's just start with that first. How you try to at least, I don't want to say subvert, but, either certain expectations or this generic, romantic, narrative or whatever by putting in all those things, because here the psychological is very, very important in terms of her investments in that relationship, which has nothing to do with money or fame or name or anything like that. So please, whoever.
So it's a repeated thing you would find with stories that I create. I'm a big fan of complicated stories. I don't think that a linear story is, really worth a lot of anybody's time, because you pretty much can say what will happen. Okay, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, and you can tell, the end from the beginning. And for me, even not as a director now, but as a human being, I don't like to be able to predict situations. I feel like, okay, if I'm going in the cinema, if I'm, putting on the TV to watch a movie, I need to have an experience. I don't want to know what is going to happen. So this is always what I do. Like when I'm creating stories or plotting, stories, I'm putting a story together. It's what I look at, like the entire experience of, like every 10 minutes, the audience being thrown off by something new that is introduced into the plot line, where you think they're going left and then they go right. It contributes to the whole viewing experience. I'm also a very big fan of psychological thrillers. It's, like if I had my way, it's the only thing I would do. But of course, sometimes we have to eat, and sometimes a director for hire, so you get to direct other genres. But you find that most of the things that I originally create have that element of, being a psychological drama or, mind-boggling, or, has that thing. And you very rarely find me create single genre pieces. It's usually a medley of something. It's, maybe a romantic drama mixed with, thriller or something. It's something that, throws you off, that takes you on that journey. Then concerning Alake, it was important for us to create a strong African woman and to sort of mirror the experience of a lot of women in marriages. Like you also said, to question what exactly love is, to question what exactly marriage is, to question what a good marriage is. Also to shine the light on the fact that psychological abuse is also abuse. It doesn't make it less traumatic because she's not being slapped or she's not being kicked around. Basic maltreatment, basic disrespect is psychological abuse. And this goes for either the male or female gender. If you're being not feeling psychologically okay with someone, you're not being treated properly, it is abuse. It's one of the hardest forms of abuse to explain, because the first question people ask is he beating you? Or is she beating you? That's the first thing. Like people tend to always go to physical violence as the only sort of abuse that one could experience in a marriage. Psychological abuse is probably more dangerous than that, because there is a danger of mental illness and all following that, and trauma, even if there are children involved in the marriage and all of that. So those were all like related themes that, we wanted to touch on, here and there, to show all of these things subliminally without being preachy, but within the story and within the experience, to show that this is an authentic experience. This is drawn from the experiences of different people who are real. And this is real. This is true. This is what they face. So then what then is the definition of a happy marriage? What are the elements that are in a relationship or in a love relationship where you say your definition of or a happy home? So these are all the things that, we looked at, and I found it very important to incorporate into the story, to ride the tide, also to see the contribution of the society and family, contributing to these factors or helping it or not. You see the role the mother plays, where you are told you have to stay there, either it's working or not, you have to make it work. Your father and I, these are societal problems, these are traditional problems we have sometimes within our climb that contribute to all these factors. So yes, so these were our motivations to just sort of touch on all these things and encapsulate them in all of this so that people going through this can relate. People who don't understand can understand, and know that this is real and this is just it. Omotunde, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
The only thing I'd add is, at the same time, the reason why Alake had to be a strong character, apart from the fact that she was going to be kind of like a strong female role model, was many times in our stories that we tell in Nollywood, the protagonist tends to be passive in shaping his or her own destiny. We wanted a protagonist that was actually very, very like the active part. Like she was one doing things, she was making things happen, and there were consequences to her actions, as opposed to just letting things happen. Not because a lot of other stories, they just react to things happening to them, react. So we wanted, so she was like taking charge of her destiny and making her mistakes, and she would get up again and try again, and and things like that. And that was actually what made her strong, because she refused to just be passive and be that person that's reacting to things happening and waiting for someone else to save her. She essentially decided to save herself. And God helped along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are very, very important points that both of you raised, because oftentimes, you might have sometimes of points of convergence and divergence between the script itself, the writer, and how the director translates that to the screen, But, one of the things I find very interesting here is really your commitment and I must say courage in moving away from the generic, the expectations, because in a generic Nollywood film, what's going to happen with, what could happen, I can't say most, with Alake is like, okay, she goes to see the pastor and then they will pray, they will bind and cast, all manners of things. And it's very important too that you make a very critical reference point, again, through her mom, because there is also the intergenerational conflicts or narrative, in terms of how the parents see and their investment in the union. Oh, you're going to disgrace us. We can't do this and that. It's very important when she mentions, or suggests, maybe you should go see War Room. Okay. Now, for some of us who may not know, War Room is a Black film here, African-American director, the Kendrick brothers. And it's a Christian film in lots of ways about, similar to what we have here, family going through, tribulations. And guess what? Well, along the way too, with faith and prayers, things really worked out. But when that film came out, not many people really gave it any chance. But it went on, I think with a budget of about 3 million or less, went on to make about 75 million. And that's very, very important, So when she makes that, I was like, okay, homegirl is cued in now, it's not just it's not just about. So I mean, those are very, very important points. But of course, she says, look, how about a counselor? How about let's work this out? Let's sit down and talk, rather than just wishing it away or having your prayer points or tithes, and in the end everything is all prayed away. There. So with that also in mind, I would like to bring in the place of family in relationships, because that is very, very critical, to this narrative. Within African cultural systems, let's just say a marriage isn't just between one person and another. It's a relationship, a bond between families, in some instances, communities, to people whom you may never know. But we find out here that Akin's mom is no longer with us, because in Nollywood too, they could say, it's her spirit that is causing the problem. I'm not kidding you. I mean, there are little ways they could say, yeah, it's her spirit, you know, she's just restless and this and that. And, you know, some people would say, oh, no, it must be Stella. And she must have gone to see Babalawo to kind of mess things up so she would get whoever she wants. But, you know, the point here is that families here are very, very important, you know, in lots of ways, if nothing else, you know, for support. And sometimes they could be also certain types of stumbling blocks. So how did you approach that very sensitive, you know, issue in terms of the delicacies and the subtleties you imbued, either in the character or the narrative itself?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear, and I touched on this a little earlier as well, the place of family in deciding or not. And the very important factor that, you know, we all should realize is that a marriage is between two people. Yes, you know, we say, oh, you don't just marry the person, but you marry the family as well. But beyond that, in that house, in that relationship, is just two people. And those two people go through whatever it is that they go through in that marriage, and it's just between them. So family can come in and placate. They can tell you how wonderful marriage is. They can tell you how to make it work, but only the two people in a relationship can make it work in the real sense of it. You can listen to advice, but you can decide which is useful, you know, for your relationship or for your marriage or not. And then whatever action you take is what becomes the relationship or the marriage you have. So yes, we can respect family, we can listen to them, you know, but we should also realize that there is no perfect person. So while they can give advice, while they can give guidance, while they can give their recommendations, it is left to the two people in a union to make it work. If the both people in the union are not ready to make it work, are not ready to give the work into it, then having a good family cannot keep that bond intact, cannot keep the joy in a marriage intact, except, you know, these two people are committed to it. That's my take, that's my perspective in telling the story as regards the involvement of family and culture in marriage and relationships.
Omotunde, do you have anything to add? Thank you.
Yeah, on the part of the family, this is a way of letting families realize that you can support, you know, your children or the people involved in the marriage by unconditionally accepting whatever is going on, and basically accepting that you can't always have it your way. You can't always fix it, but you can love them regardless. You know, whether or not the marriage works out or not. You know, you guys, especially if kids are involved, and sometimes even when kids are not involved, if you've established a relationship between in-laws, you know, you could still, there's still the place of loving them unconditionally and being there for them without necessarily insisting that things must go in a certain way, that because, you know, we want it to go that way. So it's like recalibrating the minds of everyone, both the couple and the family, to understand that family and life and relationships is not always what we think it is.
Thank you very much. And this fight, in lots of ways, it's really a parable about love. That's the way I'll say it, you know, in terms of the various issues it raises, where love is not just, you know, getting roses or sitting down to eat and, you know, saying sweet nothings, you know, but really, you know, telling us that, yes, there are twists and turns, and there are also spaces of negotiations. For instance, we see that, you know, Alake is very, very hardworking. She is also subjected to disrespect by her boss. So it's not like you romanticize, you know, African femininity. You know, the boss is really, I don't know what, I can't say that politely, but, you know, she is a challenge, you know, and, but she's resilient. You know, she goes through the juggling the domestic sphere with, of course, the professional, and making sure as much as possible that that does not, you know, intervene, you know, with her. So now, that said, there are other aspects too, because with films, the spaces are important. We have the internal, you know, emotional states, as well as the present realities. We also have the domestic space of the home, the household, which is supposed to be a place of refuge, a place of wholesomeness, because and all that. But then it becomes really, really, really a very, very a remarkable place for turmoil, where eruptions, really come up, and worse, unexpectedly. And all these add very critical, elements to the turmoil she has to go through, which in some ways could be more like a chronicle of really trials and tribulations. But in the end, she transcends, which is really about this resilience, that you are that you mentioned. So any person who says that this is my thing anyhow, I don't think this is a narrative that is cynical about love. It's not. It shows us the complexities. It shows us the reference, the reference points, the contradictions, and sometimes the constrictions. Constrictions could be characterological, personal things. It could also be external, or the expectations of culture, of traditions, and all that. So my question is this: as you write, both of you wrote this, and very well, I must, give you props for that. What were really those spaces of negotiations? Because sometimes on the set, you have to get the actors, and we're going to talk about who did you choose? How did you choose who gets to play what? Because they are just as very, very important in bringing those characters to life. So what kind of meetings, what kind of things, high points, or perhaps, if I don't want to use the word low points, but as life goes, each production is different, there are challenges. So how did you, negotiate those little stories that are in some ways also parallel to your love of creativity and art, and particularly a contribution that says something about society, not just like, oh, that made me laugh, that was kind of cute, So can you please, talk, generally on that?
Considering negotiations and compromises, I think the only one that we made was not making this on a bigger budget. That's my only regret to date, that this didn't, that we couldn't get to make it on a bigger budget. But concerning the actors, it was very, very important that they were amazing actors, believable actors that would become the character. The choice of Kehinde Bankole for Alake was was a no-brainer. Kehinde is a really strong actor. She's really, intense and all of that. And I needed someone that could bring that intensity and energy and commit to the character and become the character. Also was very important, of course, to cast actors who could speak Yoruba language as well, and speak it proficiently, and be able to think in both languages, so that when we transit to the parallel world, it's an easy transition to that side as well, and it will be believable. So Ayola, Demola, Tosin Sido, Doris Simeon, Tinamba, every one of them are like top actors in Nigeria, and they all got on board this project despite the small budget, based on the love for the story. And we're like, wow, this is great, this is lovely, we would like to be part of this, we would love to work together on this, even Mr. Biodun Alija. So it was like a family intense collaborative effort on the part of every one of the actors. Like, they owned the characters, they understood the story, they understood the reason why we're telling the story, and the importance of each plot point and each thing that each one of them represented. And that, I feel, that to date is a big blessing, that everybody who worked with me on this project understood the why and brought it forth into the project, and and it showed on screen.
Thank you very much. Omotunde, do you have anything to add? Or
I honestly, I don't recall any low point, because for me, It was I love this. I love the story so much that for me writing it was was a pleasure. So I'm sorry, there was no low point for me.
Okay, well, let's
There were
think
some
about.
challenging bits, like we were trying to figure out how she'll do how like the how she'll make the transition between parallel worlds,
Yeah.
but that was more of a challenge than a low point. It was more
Yeah.
like, and I like those kind of challenges. So, like when we figured out, like, ooh, I got it. So it feels more like a high point than a low point, because when you get it, you have an eureka kind of moment. But
Yeah.
other than that,
Okay, well,
no,
I
for
mean,
me
let
it
me
was
just put it this way. Let's just say memorable moments rather than high or low. I'm sure there are very memorable moments which you'd like to share with us. But the key thing also is this alternation between the various spaces, the here and now and the hereafter, which also is tied because people do not choose titles whimsically. Ever after kind of is about lasting, oftentimes fantasize, romance, and all that. But here also, that timelessness is giving new inflections because in this instance, how the film is bookended by the same scene, literally and figuratively. It opens at home, the celebration, the birthday, this and that, and it's bookended the same place, but you have a different interpretation. And I found that was very, very profound, in terms of its contribution to the subtleties that you bring. In addition to that, also is her going into um, the other realm of existence. You find that in the costume, the changes is very natural. Then where she meets Ajadi, I believe,
Yes.
Ajadi, and all that. And each character remains the same. But one thing about her is her resilience does not change. And we
Yep.
find like in the use of language, which I want you to comment in a little bit more too. This whole blending of Yoruba and English, which is the reality. People slip in and out. It's just the nature of things. But it's not just about communication, but they have specific ways and specific weight, in terms of the culture and tradition and the hybrid identities too, because these are working class people. And if you think as well that she was told, or there were issues with her staying, oh, be submissive, come on, what are you doing wrong here? And everybody seeming to gang up against her. Or her friend Choma, who comes to seek counsel, who has said, oh, he wants me to stop working. Like, oh boy, are you okay or what?
Oh, I have to interject here, sorry, because we have to take Q&A, and Tope has been trying to get off for the last
Yes. I
15
got.
but
Thank
she's on
you.
set. So, sorry, Prof, I
Oh.
had to just
Okay, no.
interject. But do you have any other questions you want to ask before I go to the audience? Because I really want to Tope to interact with the audience before she comes off. Please.
Oh, definitely. Excuse me. I'd like you to kind of give your understanding of where Nollywood is now,
Ooh.
and of course, where the trends, the challenges, and something like that, as well as if you have any current projects, or future projects. Those will be, helpful.
As regards Nollywood, where we're at right now is a very fast evolving space. Any keen observer of the industry, either from outside or from within, would admit that in the past 5 to 7 years, there has been a lot of remarkable changes, and things are changing fast and evolving. So I can only say at this point that nobody really knows in the next 2 years, or let me just say safely in the next 5 years, just where Nollywood would be, because we're evolving really fast. The system is changing, everything is changing, the way we work, and the entire industry itself. So it's interesting to see, and for me, it's very exciting. And I mean, just left to the imagination to figure out exactly where we would find ourselves in about 5 years from now. I can't remember the second question you asked. that was merged into that.
No, if you had any, future projects, and I say that because, here's my other question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. With films, sometimes you are advised to write in your budget in the narrative. In other words, you don't want to write a story where you require 4 helicopter shots or whatever, even though drones could do that. But I mean, here, it's not just the narrative economy. You did very well. I mean, I don't know how much, you would have wanted or what difference that would have made. But everything came out very, very well. And frankly, if it were gritty, it would even add metaphorically to the grittiness of this thing about love, not just being too clean or too romanticized. So you did quite well there,
Yeah. Thank you. I think I can give that credit to Omotunde because I was really hard on her. And part of my brief to her, even in giving her the story, was listen, Omotunde, it cannot happen in more than so spaces. You cannot do that. She's like, wow, okay, so how do I do that? I say, yes, we have to find a way to do it. So even after like the first draft, I'll go back and say, okay, this location merged with this one. Let's do this way. So for me, it was like economy of, all the elements available, all the storytelling elements available to us. Then concerning projects I'm working on, I'm in the middle of pre-production for a feature that's going to be shot early next year. It's also a psychological thriller and also has some love themes within it, but I'm not going to let everything out of the bag. It should be out sometime later, 2021. I'm currently right now on set. Actually, they're waiting for me to get back to continue the scene. I'm shooting a series, which I'm not at liberty to disclose right now. But this will be released in the early second quarter of next year. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. And we wish we could have had you for a couple more hours because we're going to have fun.
I have some questions from the audience. I have some questions. One of the questions that I had was, I thought the thing that stuck out for me, this is actually for me, is the casting. And I think that's very important because I watched a film recently where I just thought the casting was so off. So who actually did the casting? Who was the casting?
That would be me.
You, Tope? Oh, wow. Yeah. The choice of characters was actually worked and they did a fantastic job. So there's a question from Majid Suhuyini, and he said, did you have to make some major changes to the script while shooting? Love from Ghana.
Hello, Majid. No, we didn't have to make major changes to the script while shooting because, like I said earlier, I'm a compulsive script drafter. So I almost always do like the 6th draft or so before I, get ready to shoot the script. So for me, it has to be like close or almost perfect, or in my thoughts, like perfect before going to shoot it. So I'm not a big fan of things around last minute on set because I feel like things can slip through the cracks. So we're already in firm agreement as per the writing and what the screenplay is before going ahead to shoot it.
Okay. And so the film was shot for TV, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was made for TV. Yeah.
So Elizabeth has a question she said, hello from UCSB, exclamation mark. So the students, prof students are here. So hello, prof students. Thank you. And it's early their time because they are PST time. So it's like 8 a.m. for them. So thank you for tuning in. She said, what motivated the choice to have Alake end her story with a new husband rather than single?
So what is Alake's motivation? That's the first thing we ask. When you're designing a character, and Omotunde and I discussed this a lot, what's the character motivation? What is Alake looking for? Alake is not looking to be single. She's not looking to be independent. She's not looking to be by herself. Essentially, she's looking for happiness. That's what it is. Alake wants to be happy, and she wants to be happy in a relationship or not, basically in life. So she found happiness in this, other person which she met in the alternate universe. And, that really is it. So the character goal is met. That's fine for it. If for instance, within her character goal, she's someone that valued relationships and valued, her marriage or whatever, and valued love. It was important to her. So in essence, it translated to her happiness. Happiness for some other character, could have been maybe a new job or a new car or whatever. But for Alake, this was, this fulfilled goal that we set out for her.
Okay. Let me see. I think one last question, because I know Tope really does have to go. So where can people actually get to see the film? I mean, it's showing at our festival. So for people that haven't seen it, it's showing till midnight tonight. You can go to our website, africanfilmfestatl.com. But aside from that, where can people actually get to see the film?
So if you're in Africa, it's streaming continuously and you can check the guide for that on Africa Magic. You can check the TV guide for that. And then secondly, online, it shows on showmax.com. If you can look for it, it's on there like permanently.
Okay, showmax.com. So, Prof, your students are shouting you out. Majid said, thank you, Mama. Okay, there's another question. Oh, this is a long one. From one of the students. Wait, hold on.
Okay, this is the last question, right?
The last question. Okay, this is from Gladys. Tell me what you're shooting now. Wait, hold on. Well, Bad Richard says, Tope, we love your work and thank you for making Nigeria proud globally. Gladys said, this is a long one, Gladys. She said, when are you doing Castle and Castle again? Waiting desperately. Next season, wonderful movie. You had my full attention. Well, Gladys, this one is too long. Wait, hold on.
Okay, so Castle is owned by Ebony Life TV, and that's a studio. So when they decide that it's time to make a sequel, then I hear right now it's being commissioned though by Netflix for a new season. But
wow, nice.
So we don't know when we're gonna go into production for that. But okay, yeah, thank you.
Omotunde, quick, any upcoming projects for you?
I'm still working on the Netflix Mama K. We're still working on that, and I still do my normal day job of writing on Tinsel and a few other African shows like Enake. But for now, just there's some potential things in the works that I can't really talk about just yet, because it's just we're still in initial talks. But that's all for now.
Okay, Tope, one last question, because this is from a students. Sorry, no, this is actually, and it's an interesting question. This is from Michael Lee from UCSB. He said, I noticed when Alake, first transported to the alternative realm, she and several other women were wearing necklaces. She angrily took it off when she disappoints her parents, when she's rejecting Akin. Did this type of necklace have some customary meaning? That's interesting. I guess you're a good student. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, for Alake, it did, and it's good that he picked that up. But for other characters, no, it didn't. But for Alake, it was definitely symbolic. Like he pointed out, it was a way of rejecting the norm. It was a way of, rejecting the status quo and choosing a new path for herself, like this adornment, So the imagination is, usually for new brides, your jewelry and most of it is from your mom. Your mom gives you, the jewelry, and also that's like rejecting what they're choosing for her and striking out by herself.
Okay, so we're going to have to let Tope go now, but before you go,
thank you very much.
Inspiring words for upcoming filmmakers, please.
Focus on the story and tell it as best as you can. Don't forget the technicalities, but in everything you do, all the choices you make, let them aid the story, because the story is the first and most important thing.
Okay, and Omotunde, inspiring words?
Pay attention to detail. Just sometimes the devil is in details, the little things. And always try to take pride in whatever you do. If you take pride in whatever you do, you always make sure it's the best it can be.
Okay, and on that note, Prof, thank you so much, because I know it was early for you. Tope, I know This was really hard for you to do given your schedule, but thank you for coming, Omotunde. Thank you so much. I know it was last week. You know, we're celebrating Nigeria. We're trying to bring, you know, all the work that we're doing is bringing Africa to the world, but we decided to focus on Nigeria this time to celebrate Nigeria, given what we're going through with NSAS and everybody feeling down. So we wanted to uplift ourselves by doing this. I'm so happy. And with, you know, a lot of Nigerians were involved, so that even made me happy as well. So thank you everybody, for the night people, for the early people. Thank you audience for coming, for tuning in. We'll be back next year. African Film Festival Atlanta is here. This is our first one pre-corona. We did it.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for participating. I've had so much fun. We've had so much laughter, and I appreciate everybody. So we're closing out now. Thank you, audience, and
thank you.
Back next year. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Omotunde and Tope, really for bringing out the time and making these contributions, because the students learned as well as others. Thank you very, very much. We are deeply appreciated.
The room, they're clapping in the room. They're saying thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you want to know more about Tope, I actually interviewed her. So just go to it, just Google Indigo Tongues, and there's a full-length interview I did with Tope, which was beautiful. We did it in Lagos, and I'm so happy I captured her. She is one of the most prolific directors in Nigeria. This young woman here, look at her. I mean, Tope's oh my God, it's like you can't even count how many things Tope has done. So I'm so happy that we've connected and you actually attended our first festival. So thank you. And
thank you.
stay safe.
Take care.
Thanks again. Have a good evening in Nigeria.